Now, I don't always get to respond to your comments, but I do actually get a chance to read some of them. Now, here's the deal. One of you guys asked me for a comparison between the speaker I reviewed yesterday, which was the Sony SRS-XB32, I'm trying to remember this stuff, and the LG XBOOM Go PK5. And I have the PK5, of course, and I have the PK7. The PK7, the XMOOM Go PK7, that is my favorite Bluetooth speaker, man. Second on the list has to be this one. And you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and compare the two because they do have a lot of similarities. One's better than the other in certain categories and vice versa. But let's go ahead and compare the two. That way you can decide for yourself.
Let's do it.
Okay, I got them both turned on and paired up. Now let's start with battery life because, you know, it's a portable speaker that we're talking about. So if you're gonna be doing some portable stuff, you need it to last while you're out. Now the winner in this category is the Sony SRS-XB32. Anyways, with the bass boost off, you get an estimated 24 hours of battery life. That is a ridiculously long time for some battery life. But as I tested yesterday, you're gonna wanna keep that bass boost on most of the time, I'm guessing, if you're turning it up loud. And with the bass boost on, you're dropping it down to about 14 hours of battery life. So it does get a 10-hour drop with that bass boost on. Man, what are they doing in there? With the XMOOM Go PK5, you are getting 18 hours of battery life no matter what. You got clear vocals and enhanced bass turned on this thing, and you're still gonna get about 18 hours of battery life. So I guess, you know, pretty standard across the board, 14 to 18 hours of battery life. To me, that doesn't make too much of a difference because I know how to charge my stuff. But for you, that could be a deciding factor because depending on the way you listen to these things, that can be a difference between 4 and maybe even 10 hours of battery life. But as far as talking about battery life, let's go around to the flap on the XB32. Man, that is hard to get off. Okay, so you go around to the flap on the back. Once you get in here and look, this is where the XMOOM Go PK5 actually shines because we have USB-C charging. That means typically the phone you're gonna have has a USB charger, or USB-C rather, and you can use the same charger for that. And here on the Sony, we're still stuck in a stone age with a micro USB charger. But since we're back here, they both have an audio port in, looks like reset buttons, and they both have sharing buttons. However, on the Sony speaker, you can actually share some of that battery that it has in here with your phone by charging it here. Now, once we close these flaps, these speakers actually become a little bit of dust and weather resistance. You get an IP65 rating here with the Sony speaker, which means you can shoot water at it through like a nozzle or hose or something, and it's gonna be just fine. It's dust resistant and everything else. And you can just basically get it soaking wet. Here we get an IPX5 rating, which is slightly different. All that means is, yes, it's dust resistant, but instead of like getting it fully soaking wet, you can just splash the crap out of it with a water hose or something and you're gonna be just fine. Neither one of them are fully submersible, so you can't really just dunk them in water or anything like that. Now they both have drop protection, although the Sony feels like it's gonna take the most damage because the speaker itself doesn't have this cage around it. Most speakers don't have a cage around them. And I think that's what attracted me to the XBOOM Go, is because, you know, it has this like cage around it which doubles as a handle, so you can just grab this thing any way you want, and then it also helps you sit it up. Because nothing I hate more is when I got my Bluetooth speaker sitting up and it's just sitting there, and you know, there's just a slight tap or it could be an uneven surface, and it just kind of rocks and sometimes it falls over and stuff like that. That's kind of annoying. I know it's nitpicky, but you just do not have that problem with the XBOOM Go PK5. You just don't. So that's that. Now going around to some of the other features, let's talk about these buttons real quick. So we have a nice button layout on both of these speakers. I'm a bigger fan of the XBOOM Go PK5 because it just has bigger buttons and they're spaced out a little bit better. The Sony speaker has these raised up buttons and they're a little bit closer together, and you can't really see what they are because they're kind of camouflaged with the rest of the body. Whereas on the PK5, you actually have some contrast there. You can't really feel the difference between them, but there is some separation there, and it's a bigger button, so you know what you're pressing. Now, as you can see, they both have lights. It just depends on which one you like more when it comes to lights, because they both have a light show and it's also customizable. But here on the XBOOM Go PK5, you can see that the LEDs are flashing around the drivers. That way you can see how the drivers are thumping in there. And on the XB32, you can see it's just kind of a trim going around there. Then you have this little pattern going around here, which is actually pretty fly if you ask me. But since I mentioned the drivers earlier, let's talk about that real quick. Now they both have two main drivers. You can see them clearly right here, and then they're behind this grill right here on the Sony speaker. There's only two, but this is where Sony takes the L because they only have one passive radiator right here thumping out the bass, and you can kind of see that grill on the back too. On the XBOOM Go PK5, you have two right here, and you can actually push them. You are not supposed to do that, by the way. Don't do your speaker like that. Now let's get into some geek specs. Now the Sony supports the SBC, AAC, and LDAC codecs, which really just means you're going to have some great connectivity and some quality sound coming out of this speaker. Now I did test both of them watching YouTube videos and Netflix, and there was absolutely no latency in either one of them. But after checking the spec sheet on the XBOOM Go PK5, I did see that yes, it supports SBC, aptX, and aptX HD, as well as AAC. So that means you're gonna be fully covered here on the spec sheet as well. When it comes to Bluetooth connectivity and stuff like that and quality music, they both sound really good. They both have all the right codecs and stuff in there. But because of this right here, with Meridian technology, that's where the LG speaker kicks the Sony XB32's butt. Meridian is a sound technology company that has put their technology in a bunch of high-end stuff. I'm talking speaker systems that literally cost several $1,000s that have Meridian technology built into them, because that company right there is all about balance and clarity in music. Let's move on to dedicated apps. They both have dedicated apps, and this is where I might have to give Sony the upper hand here, because right here you had a lot of control with the apps. You can get into your phone library. You can change your audio source here. You can got some apps that you can connect to, like play music and stuff like that. And this is where they start to shine, because in here you can go into your clear audio or your sound mode, which actually lets you have different types of sound, which is standard, extra bass. Let's go ahead and put it in extra bass because that's where I'm going when I do the sound test. Then you have a 3-band EQ. That's what I wish I kind of had on the LG app here. So you can actually adjust your EQ on the fly if you wish. You can also adjust your illumination, so you can play with the lights here and stuff like that. I just changed it to chill, I believe. Sony also built in the party booster feature, which lets you kind of tap and beat on the speaker to make different sounds, like a snare drum and stuff like that. I think it's kind of gimmicky, but it's fun to play with when you figure out that it's there. Getting into the LG app is definitely more colorful. It makes you actually want to use it. You do have your different modes of listening right here that you can control. Right here is the only adjustment you're going to have to the EQ, which is the clear vocals and enhanced bass. I like to keep them both on at all times. It doesn't affect the battery life, so I like to just keep them on. Plus, it actually sounds a lot better that way. Here is where we get into the light show, and you have different presets that they have for you, and you can get in here and kind of fine tune things to be your own style, and you can just kind of slow it down or speed it up. So if you like that lighting, LG is all about it. You can also tap there and dig right into your phone's library and play the music directly from your phone. And other than that, that's all this app has to offer. I just think Sony has a slight edge just by having a 3-band EQ there. It's just something that's nice to have, to be able to have that type of control over your music. Now, before I jump into the sound test, I do need to let you guys know that both of these speakers can be paired up with other speakers. However, this just has dual mode, I believe. And this one, I believe you can pair up to 100 speakers. I don't even know, I don't know anybody else with this speaker. So 100 people, that's a lot of connections for a party. But you get dual mode here, so you can actually buy 2 of these and have them in stereo mode. And since I brought up having 2 of these have been discounted severely, man. I think they're like $97 now on Amazon, whereas this just came out and I think it's about $120. So if price is a big concern to you, then you can definitely save a few dollars going right here. They are on sale right now. So now let's get into the sound test, because spec sheets are just spec sheets. And in a case of a Bluetooth speaker, you got to show and prove, man. So let's get into it. I'll be playing the same few songs on each speaker, and I'll just kind of go back and forth. My mic is right up here. I'm not going to move the speakers, but I will change the volume levels, because as you saw in my last video, the sound in this right here, it will alter depending on how loud you have this thing up.
Got a hold on me. I remember the sound of us being loud, so loud, so loud. Just wonder where you're walking and talking, thinking, are you the same? I've been around, you've stayed away. Oh, I won't let it show. You got a hold on me. I remember the sound of us being loud, so loud, so loud.
Okay, you got decisions to make. These things are soaking wet from the battle they just had. This is not water. This is actually sweat. They were like in the boxing ring going head to head. Anyways, you heard the sound comparison, so you decide for yourself. I'll tell you my assessment from both of them. Just like in my review of the Sony XB32, it seems like at lower volumes, you do get a little bit of a bass heavy response, and it's like borderline muddy. Sometimes I could actually say it is muddy. And then as soon as you crank up the volume to full volume, it feels like you just lose all of the bass, and the highs, they're really, really bright, verging on the side of being tinny. However, the Meridian technology and the LG XBOOM Go PK5 tends to just sound like good music all the way through. Whether it's at the lowest volume, the 2/3 volume, or full volume, it sounded the same, just louder. So you have balance in the mids and the highs and the lows all throughout the volume spectrum. Now, as far as soundstage, the XB32 seems like a more forward firing speaker, being that it just kind of seems like it's just coming at you from one particular spot in a room, and it's really loud. However, the PK5 seems to have a bigger soundstage, and it almost sounds like it just spreads the sound around the room, and it just gives it more of a spatial kind of feel. I guess it all just boils down to what kind of listener are you and why are you buying the speaker? They're both IP something rated, so they're both pretty ruggedized. They both have great battery life. They're both pretty loud. One just has a different sound signature than the other. One seems more focused on balance and clarity, while the other one seems to be more focused on having a party. Anyways, that's up for you to decide. I gotta go wash my hands, get all this sweat off. But before I do, if you had a good time checking out these speakers with me, you make sure you throw those emoji hands up in the comment section, and I'll see y'all with the next one. All right, apparently you had a good time watching this video. Well, today is your lucky day, because I done already made a whole bunch of them for you to go back and binge watch. But if you just want to check out the new stuff, you make sure you smash on that subscribe button and tap that little bell. That way you'll know when it's time to come back and open up some new stuff.